Hello everybody, you're welcome back again to the Reggae Appreciation Society. It's generally agreed that the 1970s was the single greatest period in the history of reggae music, and based on a poll which I took a while back, more than 80% of my viewers also feel the same way. It was simply a magical time that saw the explosion of creativity with the finest vocalists, tightest instrumentalists, and genius producers all doing their thing at the highest level. Out of this incredible epoch would come one of the definitive, fundamental, and highly gifted harmony vocal reggae groups in the legendary Congos, a ridiculously talented unit whose sublime ability would merge with indeed one of reggae's greatest minds and the most gifted studio instrumentalists in Jamaican history to create what many believe is one of the top 10 greatest roots reggae albums ever created. In terms of lyrical depth and soul-piercing vocals, I honestly can't think of any other acts in the golden era that can hold a candle to that group, except maybe the Twinkle Brothers, and that is saying a lot. Simply crackling with Rastafarian fervor, soaring spiritual messaging, and almost unrivaled songwriting skills, they would end the decade as one of the most beloved and respected reggae acts of the golden era. But in what I believe is the greatest irony in modern music history, they would somehow miss mainstream success that they more than deserved, despite putting out what was one of the landmark bodies of music of that genre. An unfortunate combination of factors would abort what was set to be a meteoric trajectory for years to come, but in due time, this unit will take their place in the ranks of reggae's greatest heroes. Let's take a look at the story of the Congos. So now this group's tale begins with Cedric Myton, who was born in the seaport town of Old Harbour in the St. Catherine's Parish of Jamaica to beekeeper parents in Leicester and Daisy Myton in 1947. And like many artists of his day, he grew up in the church and cut his musical teeth as a member of the church choir. He formed his first group called the Bell Stars as a teenager in what was still the ska era, and when that group fell apart, he would form a rocksteady lineup called the Tartans, which also broke up after putting out a few moderately successful singles. He had by then become a Rasta and soon joined another group called the Royal Rasses. That group was fairly popular, but their leader was taking all the money, and Cedric would soon be on the move once again. In the dying days of that band, he became friendly with a guy named Roydell Johnson, aka Ashanti Roy, after meeting regularly at Nyabingi sessions at Rasta Mansion meetings. Ashanti Roy was also an aspiring artist and was part of foundational Rasta music ensemble Prince Michael and the Sons of Negus. He was born in a town called Kendal in the parish of Hanover in 1944 and was schoolmates and family friends with Lee Scratch Perry. After leaving high school, he moved to Guantanamo Bay to work at the US Naval Base in 1964. But in 1966, he applied for leave and traveled back home to witness Emperor Haile Selassie's visit to Jamaica that year. The experience would make him a Rasta, and he would decide to stay back in Jamaica. And by the dawn of the 1970s, his interest in music would see him hang around studios looking for producers to record him, while moonlighting with groups like Sons of Negus and Yabiu's Righteous Brothers. And it was in that phase of his life, in 1974, that he became pals with Cedric Myton, and they came together to form a duo they named the Congos. And they would in those days write the songs that became their eventual classics. They had already penned a number of songs by the time Ashanti Roy would run into childhood friend Lee Scratch Perry, and he invited them to come to his studio, the famous Black Ark, to listen to the songs that they had come up with. So Ashanti Roy and Cedric Myton turned up at Black Ark, which was in those days a sizzling hub of creative energy, and laid the vocals to their first song, Solid Foundation. And true to its name, it was indeed a solid foundation that blew Perry's mind and was followed by other wonderful songs like Judgment Time, the phenomenal Open the Gate, and the operatic theatrical Nyabingi masterpiece, Congo Man. And when all these songs were tested out at sound system dances, they would literally light up the place every time. But their impact on the Rasta movement was simply extraordinary and like nothing ever heard up till then. So after more than a year of recording, Lee Scratch Perry decided to record an album by the Congos in 1976, and by then he could boast of a crack and elite studio backing band, the Upsetters, which in those times had musical titans like Ernest Ranglin on guitar, Boris Gardner on bass, Clyde Dunbar on the drums, and Keith Sterling on piano, plus backup vocals from the group The Meditations and eventual legend Gregory Isaacs. The Congos had Cedric Myton's piercing falsetto and Ashanti Roy's powerful tenor. To truly anchor the vocals, Lee Scratch Perry suggested singer Watty King Burnett and his rich baritone to the mix, effectively making the Congos a trio. For about a year, Perry and the guys would work tirelessly at Black Ark to merge his outstanding personnel with his vision for the album. And by 1977, the Heart of the Congos was completed, a magnificent compilation that's considered by many as indeed Perry's greatest ever creation, beating the likes of War in a Babylon and Police and Thieves, and that is also saying a whole lot. That album was 10 tracks of pure brilliance that fans still can't get enough of after all these years. It had everything, and I mean everything, to make it a spectacular success on a global scale, but the opposite would happen. Perry's label was in an arrangement with Island Records, which has seen that label distribute Junior Mervin's Police and Thieves, as well as Max Romeo's War in a Babylon with great success. But Perry had by then fallen out with Island Records over contractual matters. Perry sent the finished tapes to Chris Blackwell, who listened to it but declined it and chose not to distribute it. As the story goes, Blackwell wasn't impressed at the album's quality and felt that only one track or two were good enough. And if you ask me, that's absolute rubbish. It's popularly believed that Blackwell by then just didn't want to work with Perry anymore, while other people, including the great Max Romeo, believed that Blackwell didn't want any other reggae artists to become as big as Bob Marley, who was then his most prized reggae asset. I feel that the most plausible reason is that he felt that the Heart of the Congos was too deep, dark and heavy in its Rastafarian themes to truly be a commercial hit beyond reggae's then still emerging circles. But whatever the case, Island Records didn't distribute it, and it was released instead on Lee Scratch Perry's Black Ark label. Perry was a great producer, no doubt, but honestly, he was a terrible record label boss, and the album would only see less than 1,000 copies released. This fiasco led to the Congos splitting from Perry and attempting to market it on their own, and after more than 2 years of grinding, they eventually released it through a UK label called Go Feet in 1980, but the momentum had been lost, even though that album was well received. They tried their hands at self-production with the next album, Congo Ashanti, which came out in 1979, but it didn't do so well and was nowhere near the heights of their debut. And these challenges caused the group to fall apart at the beginning of the 80s, with Cedric Myton left alone to continue the Congos as a solo act. However, Heart of the Congos slowly but surely became an underground cult smash hit and got picked up by a UK record label called Blood and Fire, which was owned by singer Mick Hucknall, and it was remastered and reissued in 1996, giving it a new lease of life that introduced their music to a new generation of fans, and it took off around the world, winning a particularly powerful fan base in Brazil, and the demand for the group was so strong that they would reform soon after and began to go on tours worldwide to rapturous audiences. They released their aptly titled album Natty Dread Rise Again in 1997, and they haven't looked back ever since, playing countless shows and concerts year in year out in the biggest reggae festivals around the globe. And they continued to release new material, and they have worked with the hottest producers on the globe and still get featured by some of the biggest reggae acts of today, such as Brazilian superband Ponto de Equilibrio, who featured them on their 2013 track Novo Dia. The music of their masterpiece Heart of the Congos has continued to pop up in popular culture, like the song Fisherman that was included in the soundtrack of the 2022 movie Nope. Though now in the early 80s and late 70s, the Congos continue to sell out massive arenas as their music continues to resonate with new fans. They may have suffered a slow march to legendary status, but they are today among the most respected and loved reggae groups, and definitely they embody the energy and essence of 1970s roots reggae, inspired, spiritual, and amazingly talented, more than deserving of their place in the sun as one of the greatest roots reggae groups of all time. So there you have it. Thank you for watching this video today. Please leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, God bless.